How's it going, guys? Um, yeah, so for those of you who don't know who I am, I actually, with Dan, it was funny. I was one of his first classes of Facebook ads for entrepreneurs class back in 2016. So that was a long time ago, actually.
It was.
But before that, I was actually a clinically certified cytogeneticist, or when I started that, that's what I was doing. So my background is actually in science and genetics, and I was in a lab analyzing chromosomes for abnormalities. And I was doing that for about a decade. And I was like, working weekends. So I was like, I gotta do something else. There was just no way to continue with that. I was like, there just has to be something else. So that's how I found, I was looking around and I was like, oh, I could do some Facebook ads for businesses. And that's when I found Dan and his course and joined it. And I was not the fastest, not whatsoever, with being able to, hit the elusive 10K a month level. But it took me about 15 months or so. But in that time period, I was able to, obviously way surpass what I was making in the lab, and was able to give them my 2-week notice on a sorry for your loss card, because they were wanting to write me up for having to change my day off for my daughter's birthday. And I was like, you know what, screw you guys, I'm out.
God.
So, so I went to the store, got a sorry for your loss card, and just wrote my 2-week notice on it, and gave it to them and never looked back. So yeah, it was a exciting but scary time too, just doing that. But since then, I really have gotten into chatbots, obviously. That's my bread and butter. Automation kind of goes along with that, but I've built a lot of chatbots. Facebook obviously was the first one with Messenger, but now also Instagram and WhatsApp, also Telegram. So it's a lot of fun, and it's really cool of all the things that you can do. So, and part of that, the coolness of that is that there's so much to do, then it's kind of hard, like, okay, well, what, where's everybody at with their knowledge or what they want to do? Whenever I have a client that says, hey, I want to have a chatbot, I'm like, well, you got to tell me what you want it to do, because I can pretty much make it do anything. So, with that being said, I wanted to, find out from everybody. And also, while I'm kind of finishing my little spiel here, if you want to put in the chat, like, if you're a beginner, if you've never used chatbots before, or if you've used ManyChat before, or if you've used it a lot, just say in the chat where you're at one of those 3 levels. So at least that way I know, based off of our audience here, kind of how I need to be discussing, or what level I need to be talking about. So Jeff, medium rare. So anyway, so I started with chatbots in 2017. Got my first client with chatbots, which is a local restaurant client. Started running birthday ads, which are amazing. I started birthday ad in November of 2017 for that restaurant client. It is still running to this day. I have not touched it. I've not edited it. It is like the ideal Facebook ad campaign that I started it then in November, and have not had to do anything with it. So the only thing I've changed is the budget, but it's still running.
Isn't that the one where you get the perk of delicious Mexican food? Am I remembering? Yes. Okay, it's been a couple of years.
So the other little tidbit, and sorry, I'm going to apologize. My cat decides
You're
when I'm
fine.
talking, she's like, oh, I'm going to come here. But the other really tidbit of suggestion is with anything with an ad that you're going to be running for quite a while. I mean, you guys probably know this, but especially with chatbots, is you can be kind of vague, sort of vague in the ad, and provide more details in the chatbot. Same with a landing page, right? So I am like super glad that I didn't include any specifics necessarily in that ad, because we've changed it a bit since then. I still does say have a free meal, but we've also edited it now that people were just coming in and getting a free meal and not buying anything. The owner's like, well, we want to now make it, you have to buy something. And then so that it's like, oh, you have to buy an appetizer, then you get your free meal. And then he's like, okay, that's enough. We need to have it where buy a meal, get one free. So we've been able to edit it a bit in the chatbot, which is good, but it's really the awesome piece is I haven't had to touch it. And it's funny because he opened up a second location. And so I started running a birthday ad for that one. It was a couple of years, after he'd opened the first one. I was like, dude, this ad's working great. I'm just going to duplicate it. Why recreate the wheel? And Facebook actually was telling me that something with the ad, I don't even remember what it was, but something with that ad specifically, I had to change because with recreating it, like I guess it's grandfathered with something that I set up. So I was like, oh, so the joys of running an ad for multiple years, not having to shut it off and turn it back on. So fun times with that. But yeah, so that's where I kind of started, was with that, and it's just taken off since then, running bots for so many different businesses, e-commerce, lead generation, doing quizzes. If you didn't see, I did a thing for ManyChat for a webinar recently about running quizzes, also doing a 5-day challenge, a mystery gift campaign that brought in my client like over $20,000 in a week, because people like to engage with things, and they like games, they like suspense, they like being able to choose a door or choose a gift, right? So you can add all of those things into the chatbot. Some of that obviously is more advanced, but it's kind of just, giving you guys an idea of like, there's really endless possibilities of what you can do, especially if you're connecting it to APIs and other pieces like that. So quizzes, it's just, and you can connect people into the chatbot multiple ways. Like I said, with Messenger, there's ads obviously, but you can also do a link directly into the chatbot. You can do comment to Messenger, or also with Instagram, comment to Instagram. And then you can do other things like QR codes, buttons on websites, chat widgets. So there's a lot of different possibilities. And again, each use case, I'm sure you're thinking in your head, like, okay, this sounds really cool. There's a lot of things. How exactly could I use this? So there's a lot of different ways to use that. So let me really quick see what most people are saying.
Looks like a lot of beginners.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's good to know. Level 2 use and created a basic flow. Do I use Mobile Monkey? No, I'm like just ManyChat, because they pretty much cover everything. And I've been using them since 2017. So it's like, why learn a new platform when I don't have to? Okay, so with that being said, what I will do, I guess another quick question while I'm pulling this up is, let me know what your initial thought after I just kind of gave that overview of like saying everything is endless pretty much. But let me know your thoughts of what ultimate goal would you guys think, this is what I want to build, or this is what I would want to build. Would it be like a lead magnet? Would it be something else like a appointment setting? Because I want to show you guys what's possible, kind of using a use case that's kind of going to be most used. Because I wouldn't want to do like a coupon, an e-commerce coupon thing if everybody's doing agency stuff, right? So okay, so appointment setting, funnels, so booking appointments, schedule appointments, ads, lead magnets. Okay, so and then here's the other piece of it is with what I'm going to show you, that's kind of foundational. A lot of it you can adjust to make it for your use case. So if we take a step back and we think about it, within a chatbot, someone comes in, you pretty much want to get their email and or their phone number, right? And then have them with the call to action, whether it's a lead magnet, that'd be, okay, click here to get your lead magnet, or booking a call, clicking to have them go and book a call. If it's a webinar, say, okay, great, you can register here. So there'll just be minor differences based off of whatever your goal is at the end. But let me pull up here really quick, ManyChat, and I can share my screen. And then also, please, if you guys have any questions while I'm going through this, or need me to clarify something, just let me know. And for those of you who've been around for a while and have used ManyChat, but you haven't used it in a while, it looks different. Just mainly also because there's new features and functionality that's coming down the line, like Instagram and WhatsApp and stuff. Question about Facebook and ManyChat, still good? Oh yeah, they are like in cahoots with each other, connected. So if there's ever an issue that we're seeing inside of ManyChat or something with Facebook, they have a back channel, so they chat constantly. Okay, so and then let me go here. Okay, so when you set up for ManyChat, also want to let you guys know, when you're setting it up, you connect it to your Facebook page, and then you would also connect it to your Instagram if you want that, and or WhatsApp. There's also email that you can send through here, and SMS as well. So really, this is like the gambit of everything if you want. There's instances like with email and SMS where with some clients, I have it set up where the email that I send through the chatbot, I mean, they also have active campaign and stuff, but when I'm sending out a like a broadcast flow to the list, and let's say, they haven't opted into a recurring notification with Facebook or Instagram, and they haven't engaged in the last day, and I can't send them a message through one of those channels, then I use email as a backup to get them back into Messenger.
Can you explain that rule for people who aren't aware? Because I know that's something that was added like a couple years ago, but maybe not everybody knows how that works.
Yeah, so it's funny. The Facebook has kind of by the seat of their pants made decisions as they've gone along with changing with things with Messenger and chatbots in general. So back in the good old days of Wild Wild West, when it first started, you could broadcast to your entire list as many times as you wanted. Whatever you wanted to send them, you could send it to them. But of course, there's a lot of people who ruin that for the rest of us, and were spamming people, and users got pissed and were blocking messages, and then it was causing some pages to get banned. So Facebook reacted, and they ended up saying, okay, you can, they added a few different rules. One was that you can't broadcast unless it's like these 5 different categories, and you had to choose a category. But Facebook wasn't really clear necessarily, there's some gray areas. So then that issue was, okay, you're choosing account update as the category, and you thought it was an account update, but Facebook didn't. So then you'd get a warning or you'd get a ban. It was just, it was horrible. It was super annoying. Oh, and the question, I thought that Facebook had banned ManyChat. No, they haven't banned ManyChat. They work in conjunction and really tightly with the development team at ManyChat, because Facebook understands how important messaging is. So to businesses and connecting with customers. So I've actually been in contact directly with the head of Facebook Messenger that we've talked about things that they could fix and help, especially for those of you, like I said, been around for a while. The new page experience caused a huge havoc on chatbots because Facebook changed the API, and they didn't even think, new pages, you can't get to certain settings and stuff. It was a disaster. But they're going along and they're fixing things, and it's actually really, really good right now because they have implemented this thing around recurring notifications. So let me first, though, before I get into that, because that's actually kind of part of this, is the thing that I call the hierarchy of notifications. If you think about it, between Messenger, Instagram, SMS, and email, we'll just go with those 4. At the bottom would be email, right? People open their email maybe once a day, twice a day, they're spam, things like that. So that is the bare minimum, but we all know email is still important, that we should have a list, right? So at least getting email as a way to reach people if they don't have the other options. So then above email, the way I put it is SMS, just because it's a paid feature. Obviously you have to pay per message. So yes, it does still initiate a notification on someone's phone, but you're having to pay for it. Next would be either Instagram or Messenger, whichever one they opted into, would be the recurring notification. So when you have people opt into the recurring notification, you can have them opt into being daily, weekly, monthly, or one time. And so the good news about that is, unlike those subjects that I was saying that were gray area, that Facebook would, send you a ban or a warning, when someone is opting in for a recurring notification, that's black and white. They're opting in for it. The only issue is if your subject that you put as the title of the recurring notification, let's say, for example, just something with e-commerce, let's say, that they are opting in to be notified about when there's going to be new t-shirts that are coming to the store. And let's say instead you send them a recurring notification about shoes or something that's not related to what they opted into. That could be an issue where Facebook could then, warn the page for that. So that's why you want to make sure your recurring notifications are consistent and concise as well. The other part of that is, or for the recurring or the hierarchy of notifications is, so the recurring notifications is next up above SMS, and then above that is anyone who's engaged in the last 24 hours. Because when somebody engages with your chatbot, that's sending a message to you, obviously, or clicking a button that results in sending a message. Clicking a button that goes to a website does not count as engagement because it's not sending or receiving a message. So it's pretty much sending a message either manually or through clicking a button. That opens up a 24-hour window where you can send them a message or as many messages as you want during that 24 hours. So it's definitely a good strategy to try to keep that open as much as possible, and also use your recurring notifications where you try to open that 24-hour window. So you get more than just one message, you get to expand it. But the reason why the Facebook and Instagram 24-hour window is above the recurring notification mainly is because the recurring notification, you can only send, I'll show it here, you can only send a outside 24-hour window. So here's a reason, let's just say this. You can only send a message with a button, and that's it. You see all this, the cards, the galleries, everything else is excluded. So that initial message that you send to people is not as engaging as if you were sending them a regular message that you could send them everything. So that's a big reason why with the conditions where I just put last interaction messenger is less than a day, where they end up having that there. And then the next one is the condition of notification topic available right now is, I forget which one I chose. I'll just use this one. Of course, though, you want to make sure that you have chosen the right one, that it matches. So that way, oh, it is. Okay, I did choose the right one. So that's why, here I can add, an image or whatever with the text and the buttons to be able to get them to engage versus this, that's just a message and a button. So that's the big, I guess, engagement rules with Facebook. And of course, this is engaging where you're sending a message to people where you're initiating it. Whereas what also I'm going to go over here in just a second, which I kind of went on a tangent about lead generation and getting people in, when they click on an ad, when they, click on, send message on your page or send a message in DMs in Instagram, when they're taking that initiative, you don't have to worry about this because they're technically interacting right then. So they're opening up that window. So let me see here. Let me quick see what people said. Yes, I'll go over the messenger ads. And then can you use SMS to US clients via chatbot even if you are not in the US? Meaning, does the chatbot assign you a number? Okay, so yeah, so that's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. So with ManyChat specifically, you can only have SMS right now for US, Canada, and Mexico. So I think Mexico too. Maybe it's just US and Canada. It's been a minute since I've set up a new SMS campaign for a client. So, but they used to have Australia and UK and stuff, but they reduced it just because of the charges and the costs and stuff, and obviously the usage. But if you are outside of the US, but your client's in the US, you can set up an SMS for your client in the US. They would just, it assigns you a number. So you don't get to pick the number, so it just assigns it to you. But that's also another point that I want to bring up is the fact that, SMS, if it is outside of the US, which I have a client that's global, that's an influencer, all over. So I have two SMS kind of setup where it's SMS to the US that uses ManyChat. And then I go through Twilio for everybody else. And the main reason why I use both of those is because it's easier. And the majority of the people are coming in through the US anyways, but it's easier to set up an SMS back to Messenger connection within the chatbot. So that's the big reason why I use both instead of just using one. So again, it's an example of what's the use case, what's the end goal, where you're starting at, and just trying to figure out the best way to get there. So with that being said, I'll show you really quick an idea of what you can do with, like, let's just say lead generation, getting somebody to come in and provide their email and phone number, and then to book an appointment. So I'll just delete this here really quick, start fresh. So when you start this, and let's just say, just for the sake of explanation, we'll just start with Messenger. But again, you could use Instagram or you could use WhatsApp. Messenger and Instagram are pretty similar in terms of capabilities and what they can do. WhatsApp is much more limited. Like, you can't do galleries, of images, things like that. So there are some limitations with WhatsApp, but most people, if they're using ads, or they're using Facebook ads. So with the initial message, and again, this can be dependent on how you have the ad set up. So I guess maybe I should start with the ad really quick to just show you, so you can understand why I'm going to have the messaging, the initial messaging, the way I am. So let's just say with the ads, I'm just going to pull up an ad here that I made in the, I think this is it. Okay, so when you set up an ad for the destination of Messenger, you can use traffic, or you can also use leads, or and I know Facebook is changing up the look of, or the naming of some of these. So there's engagement also. They can do messages. It's not going to stay on there. So Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, you can use engagement. You can also use leads. I don't recommend leads for this. My go-to is usually traffic or engagement. Usually I start off with traffic, especially if it's something that's not asking them to, not a huge ask inside of the DMs. So like signing up for something simple, where they don't have to really think too much. The big difference is engagement. Does Facebook ends up showing that to more people who use Messenger a lot, or Instagram DM, but they use it a lot. So the cost is a little bit higher, but of course, highly suggest, especially from my science background, that you do split testing to see what works best. But if I have to start, I usually start with traffic, just because it's link clicks that go into Messenger, just to see how well it's performing. And if it's not doing that well, like if I'm not getting a lot of people in to actually do the conversion inside of the chatbot, well, then I'm like, well, I'm going to switch and try engagement to see if I can just get a higher quality of person through there. But like, for example, like with my restaurant client, when I'm doing ads for coupons, traffic all day, because it's like, I don't need people to go in and be giving a lot of information or having to think about it. So let me pull this back up here. Okay. So with the ad itself, when you're setting up the ad, at the end, well, actually I'll go to the ad set first. So with you want to make sure that this is Messenger. One thing with Instagram DM, you do want to use messages for that one. So with Messenger, or as you see WhatsApp here, you can actually have the destination of these two, but Instagram, you need to have messages or engagement. So the nice things with traffic, there is this feature with choosing messages. So once you choose that and you fill out the ad and everything, at the end here is this message template. Because you're doing new, you just hit start conversations. And then this is where you can change your message. And there's all these like questions, and some of these, I mean, you could use this, but it won't fire off anything unless you set it up in your chatbot. So my suggestion is that instead of frequently asked questions, you just do quick replies. And then, like, let's say for, if we're doing the example of the appointment, then you can say, to schedule an appointment, or whatever you want to say, point. And I say, so that I say, tap the button below. So then, I don't know, I have to put phone number, and then you just copy and paste that in here. So what this does is it creates inside of the chatbot a keyword that is this. So you want to make sure this is exactly how you're going to have it. Like, seriously, copy and paste it. Like if you type it in where you add, like, let's say you added an exclamation point here, but didn't do it in your chatbot, and you start running, and then it won't go. So you want to make sure that you have it exactly as you want it to be. They'll fire off the chatbot. So once you have the quick reply there, and then you hit save and finish, and then inside of your chatbot, let's see, what you'll do is you have the trigger of being a keyword. So you go to Facebook, and then you go to the keywords down here, right there, keywords. And then here you put message is, and then you can put the keyword, and then hit create. So then what that does is when somebody clicks that button, it will be taking people to this specific flow. So And it doesn't keep though people from typing in something. They might say something else, which then, that's just the nature of the game sometimes, but at least this way it'll get people into the flow. For those of you who might know a little bit more about like the JSON code messaging, that is an option that you can do as well. So that would be using advanced setup, and then you can end up putting the JSON code here, which you can get from here. So if you add a new trigger and you have the ads, the JSON ads, then it's because I don't have this set up, but I don't use this really that much. So I'm not going to like set that up, but it would change how you set up your initial messaging here. So my suggestion is just use a keyword. That way you can also use the same keyword. Like let's say you are running, it would be an Instagram keyword, but you would say the same. You could say, hey, just DM me the word schedule now, and you'll be taken through the flow, or you'll be able to take it. The chatbot will take you to help you schedule. So that way you can reuse it, because obviously you can't paste that JSON code, in a post. So, so then what you do is in here, let me go back here. So in this message where I said, schedule now, get out of the way, Zoom. So here where I have the schedule now, where did it go? Here it is. This is the first initial message that they will receive. Also make sure you're using the right page. Obviously I'm building, the ad is with a different, I'm just gonna change it. That way it's not weird. It's consistent, because that's the last thing you want, is to have the ad set up with a page to say do this, and then you're building the bot in a different page, and then it doesn't work because it's not connected. So that is super important to have there. Oh yeah, so see, it even changed that. So now I need to just okay, so that way, and I guess I'm glad I went over that, because somebody might not have realized that, and then it happened to them. Which is something that happened to me one time with a client, where I accidentally made the ad for it, and it was on a different page on accident when I was first starting. So that was fun.
It's like you never forget those things, right?
Yes. Yeah. Which I will tell you another one of those, never forget those things, here in just a second. So that way you don't make the same mistake. Okay, so they click the schedule now button. So this is the next message that they will receive. So that's where I'm like saying, okay, great. Actually, we're gonna do a user input, because these are what you can use to get email. Pretty much you're wanting to collect information. You want to use a user input, which you can see here with this free keyboard input. This is just a text box. So then I say, okay, great. To schedule, tap your email below or reply with your best email. So the thing with Facebook, you don't have to do this for Instagram, but with Facebook, it will pre-populate their email into a button. And it's the email that is their Facebook email, which could be good or bad. Some people don't ever check their emails anymore that they log into Facebook with. But the flip side is, if you get those emails, they could be used for audiences and things like that on Facebook. But side note, you can also use the user ID from ManyChat, and that's links to their profile too. But when you use the email, it will pre-populate that in there. But that's why I say, your best email. So then the thing that I was going to say about like the thing you don't forget. So the next step I always do is I do a condition, looking to make sure that they did provide their email. They didn't just skip it, right? Because we want to make sure that they have provided their email. So you can say email has any value. And then my other suggestion, this is just also for Facebook, is that their email doesn't contain a black hole. And you're like, what is that? That's so random. Well, for my years of running chatbots, I'd ask for email, and people would submit an email, and it was this weird random something, a bunch of letters and numbers with the word black hole Duval at Facebook.com. Somehow Facebook messed it up. So you can't email that, it just bounces. So if you put in here all of the following, that they've provided an email and it doesn't contain black hole, then it will be a legit email. Although I feel sorry for anybody who goes through my chatbot who actually has the word black hole in their email. Sorry, you won't be able to submit your information. But that has not yet happened. So going back though to the part of this thing you will never forget. So that's this part. So I had a broadcast scheduled to send out for a webinar promotion for people to opt in to be a part of. And it was a launch, and it was like, I had it set to send at like 4 a.m. my time, Pacific time. And so I wake up to a bunch of frantic messages from my client's team saying, people are getting stuck. What is going on? Like, we don't know what's happening. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what is going on? So the thing is that you don't want to forget is you want to make sure you save the response. Back then you had to save it to an email custom field. The nice thing now is they have system fields now with the email, for example, but the problem was it wasn't saving it to the field, and then the condition was looking for it and it wasn't there. So it was saying, sorry, I didn't get your email. So make sure you always make sure that this is set up, whether it being a system field or a custom field, especially if you have a condition afterwards, because the bot's just doing his job. And if you don't set it up right, it's gonna.
Oh my God, what a nightmare.
So I had to go through each person who went through that flow and copy their email and paste it into their profile and then resend the flow. It took hours. It was, I would, never do that again. Fun times. So then you get their email. The other thing is on here, you can actually have it expire. And I usually do like 10 minutes, because if they have opted in and they get this message, but they haven't responded, you want to send them a follow-up. So when I'm talking to a new potential client, they're like, oh, well, we have this landing page that we're doing this. I'm like, does your landing page send messages to people when they don't fill out the form? It doesn't, but the chatbot will if they forget for whatever reason. For an orthodontist client of mine, I actually did the stats, and these follow-up messages that I set up brought in 30% more people that otherwise wouldn't have made it if they wouldn't have gotten those reminder messages. So we all know people are busy, they get distracted. It's always good to have a reminder message. So that's where putting in here saying, like, looks like you didn't get your email. Actually, what I do here, I should do it this way, so I'm not having to recreate the wheel all the time. Since we're asking them for their email again anyways, is to then say, looks like we didn't get your email. If you want to schedule an appointment, because this is getting obviously sent to them 10 minutes afterwards, giving some context. Okay, so then that's what they would do down there. And then same thing, if the email doesn't have any value, like if they hit skip or if it has black hole, then it would send this. And then you want to just make sure it goes back through there. And then, so once they provide their email, either initially or through the reminder message, then that's where you can have the next step, which if it's, having an appointment, that would be, you could ask for their phone number, right? So you can do the same thing. Okay, there we go. Oh, stalled there for a second. And I say, like, next, please apply with your phone number. And then that's where you can save it to phone here. And then this is where you can opt in to SMS. If you are going to opt into SMS, of course, we all know you got to make sure you use the language. So like for clients that I'm doing SMS marketing to, I also say, by responding with your phone number, you're agreeing to receiving marketing messages, blah, blah, that language, right? So we don't get in trouble. But if you're just asking for their phone number because you're going to call them, on a form, you're not going to necessarily do SMS, then I would just have that off. And then you don't have to worry about it. Okay. And then same thing where it's 10 minutes. And here's the other thing. So the skip part, so they can hit skip if they, if they say, instead of just their phone number, they start saying, oh, my number is, and they reply with it, they have to just reply with digits. So if they don't reply digits, it'll send them this message saying your phone number needs to contain, and you can change this, right? So you can say, just send the number, that's it, or something like that. And then you can have it where it skips, have a skip text. And then if they retry 3 times, they don't do it right, then it'll just continue on. So again, that's where having this condition afterwards is super important. So that way, they provide what you're asking for. But in the instance where you don't really care, like let's say phone number is optional, then you could allow them to hit skip and then not stop them, right? So again, it's kind of whatever is your preference or use case. And then same thing with here where it's not done that. And then we say, if we didn't get your phone number, something like that. And then the same thing, I have to go next step, oops. Then, okay, so here is the cool part is, if that's all you're needing, I mean, you could also ask them like, what would you like to discuss on the call? It could be, you can have whatever you want for the user input for text, for example. And then you want to save it to a custom field, like I mentioned. Sorry. So once you have whatever you want to ask through that process, then that's where the next call to action is, which in this case, with it being an appointment, that you have them click to schedule. So there are two ways to go about this. Obviously, if we're having appointment scheduling, that you most likely have an appointment software like Acuity or Calendly or Schedule Once or whatever, right? So that you want to send them to. The other option is, and this is what I use, for example, for a physical therapist, that they don't have an online scheduler, that I just ask them to pick a day in the next week that would work best for them, and then ask them what time of day would be, a range would be best. So there are a couple ways to go about it. Ideally, obviously, if you're wanting to have this automation as a set it and forget it, that it just brings in appointments, definitely you want to connect your online scheduler if you have one. So next button below to schedule. And then here's the other thing. As we all know, like I use Acuity. I'll explain why here in a second, but when they go to schedule, they're gonna have to give their name and email again, right? So that as the user experience kind of sucks. It's like, dude, I just gave this information in the chatbot or in DMs. Why am I having to give it again? So what you can do, which is really cool, is use URL parameters. Now, with whatever system you use, you want to make sure that you find out first what the field ID is. So pretty much to do that, you just go to your scheduler, you hit right click and you inspect the page, and you see what the ID is of the email, for example, and their name and their phone number. And then what you can do, so like, I don't remember, Acuity scheduling, I think is what it is actually. Is then you put in here the question mark, and then let's say name is the ID of the field, and you can hit equals, and you can put their full name, or just I put their first name, because in the URL, spaces are a %20. That's what a space equals. So you can go like first name and then %20, and then you can do last name. And then you put and then it's for like your email. If that's the name of the field, then you just do it this way. And then I highly suggest that with any chatbot that you put together, that you test it first to make sure it does what you want it to do. Because there are times where I inspect the page and I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Here's the ID. And I go and do it and it doesn't do it. I'm like, what the heck? And so I'm like, I'm so glad I tested this because it's not working like I wanted it to. So just an FYI, make sure you test it. But so that's what that can do is you can actually then pre-fill the field that you got inside of the chatbot. Next step that's more advanced is connecting APIs where you can actually pull in appointment times, like in the next few days, that they can just choose from, and then they don't have to leave the chatbot at all. The good news is that 80% of people are on mobile when they're going through this anyways. So when they click the button, it will actually do a web view inside of Messenger. So that way it doesn't feel like they're going anywhere else, because once they complete the appointment and they hit the X, it brings them right back into Messenger. So that's pretty much with creating the appointment. Now, the next step that you could do, and again, this is depending on the software that you're using. I don't think Calendly does this. I know Acuity does. I haven't checked Calendly in the last, I don't know, year, they might have implemented this, but with Acuity, I can actually add the ManyChat pixel into my system. So when somebody schedules the appointment, it will actually fire off the pixel, and then I can have it where it will send the conversion back into ManyChat. So I can say, hey, thanks for scheduling an appointment. So it's almost kind of creepy because it's like, oh, they know I scheduled an appointment. So you can do it that way. The other way, if you want to even take that another step, is using what I use Zapier, but using Zapier to then send that information, like when an appointment is scheduled, being able to send that information, including the appointment date and time, back into ManyChat. So then you can send a reminder message to them like before the appointment happens. And in order to do that, and the reason why, or what was missing from Calendly, and you guys who use Calendly can find out if they have this now, but is having a hidden field. So for example, with Acuity scheduling is I can put in, and I forget what the field it's like a field ID. It's depending on the appointment type, but let's say the field, and then it's a bunch of numbers or whatever. And then I can put in here the user ID. So this system user ID connects to the page. It's a page ID for that person connected to the page itself. So Facebook will be able to know exactly who that is based off of that unique identifier. So when I send this as a hidden field, then I can use with Zapier when an appointment is scheduled. I can see if that hidden field has any value, and if it does, then I can use the Zap to say, okay, take that number, send a message to the user, and also fill in custom fields of all their information. So then that way it can send them a message, a confirmation right then and there, but also send them reminder messages based off of that appointment day and time. So you can get really crazy like that, which is really cool. It's fun to watch that happen and to work well. I use it for my restaurant client for tamales. When people were coming to pick them up or whatever, I put it in there. It's a custom field of what day and time they chose, and then it would remind them the day before and an hour before. Because when I was first doing that campaign with him, there would be people who are saying, yeah, I want to order a dozen tamales, and they never show up. So having that reminder works really well. Also works great for my physical therapist, for dentists, things like that, to be able to remind people to come in for their appointment. So so that is pretty much in general a super simple lead gen flow that then gets them to schedule. Of course, once they provide their email, if you want to send that to your CRM, if you have Active Campaign, it directly interact or applies with ManyChat, that you can actually get that connected directly. Otherwise, you can use Zapier, and you can trigger a Zap that would then send the email. Same with the phone number that you could send to your CRM or to somewhere, if you have somewhere else that you do phone numbers. The other, what was the other thing I was going to say? So adding, and so then the other piece too is, like I was saying, you can add this to, calls to action for emails, right? You can do a URL for that, a messenger rep URL. You can do a customer chat and have this connected on a website. So you can have a lot of different ways that people can go into this flow and get the information and get to schedule an appointment. The other piece, and this is actually what I have on my chatbot, is I ask people who they are and what they're interested in, where they're at in their experience with building chatbots, and then based off of what they're looking for, then it sends them, okay, so it sounds like you need to that you want to build the chatbots, but you want to learn how, so click here to schedule. And that's a different one versus, you're wanting somebody to build it for you, so click here to schedule a discovery call. So you can have that variation within your chatbot to make sure that you are being able to dynamically set up where people are going to go based off of different criteria. So based off of that, let me know what questions you guys have, and look here and see what people have been saying while I've been
something I wanted to ask you about as you were kind of going through that is how, when you add kind of the layer of complexity of using things like Zapier or integrating with other things, do you find that it needs more maintenance? like, does the benefit outweigh the probability that things are going to break? Or is it just, how do you weigh those things out? Because in my mind, when I'm thinking, especially for calls or, the old DMC calls or whatever, I always think like, what is the most frictionless thing we can do to get a great outcome, assuming that most people are not super tech savvy and are like maybe a very small team or a solopreneur. So when you're kind of looking at, because there's so much you could do here, right? There's like a ton. You get really wild with it. How do you make those decisions, and what would you advise people? How would you advise people to make those calls?
Yeah. So my suggestion is, if you are on the lower end of the spectrum of considering yourself not so tech savvy, definitely keep it simple. And also, if you're just starting out with ManyChat, I would definitely suggest you keep it simple. But, if you use other things, like with ClickFunnels, and you've used Zapier and you're good, with that, with that process of how you can connect things, then I would suggest using Zapier. Has never failed me in terms of running zaps, unless it's a human error. Like I messed up with something, like I forgot to turn on the zap or something. But the nice thing is with Zapier, for example, if something goes wrong with that, they send you an email. So, like, hey, the zap failed, or a test didn't happen. Then you're like, oh, okay. And that can help you troubleshoot. But in terms of like with ManyChat, like I said, as long as you test it and it works well, then it shouldn't have an issue, unless there's a disconnect with your page, which I can show you. If there's anything that goes wrong with ManyChat, the first thing you want to do is refresh your connection to the page. And that's mainly because sometimes Facebook changes APIs with just minor changes that can cause a slight disconnect with chatbots. Like if a message isn't sending when it should be, or just something's not functioning just right, then it might be that connection. Or if they're not sending at all, then that's obvious there's an issue with that. So being able to just refresh that connection. But again, if you set it up and it's running, and it's not super complex, then it should just run without an issue. Like for example, with that restaurant client of mine, where I have people opt in for their birthday campaign, they get a reminder 3 days later, and then that's it. And it's been running since 2017. I've made changes. Obviously, I've added the notification feature, once that came out, and also adding SMS when that came out and stuff. But really, I mean, as long as you have it kind of situated, the only thing that would be that you want to be make sure you're aware of, and I'm sure if any of you run email campaigns, you understand this, the whole conditions thing that can get you tripped up pretty easily. If you say, has or hasn't, the positive or the negative, of like, if they have a tag, they don't have a tag, or any or all, so just double check those. That's the place where sometimes I get still a little tripped up, where if I'm testing something and it doesn't work right, that's the first thing I go and look at. It's like, okay, are my conditions wrong? Did I, in my head, think of it one way and then I put it in a different way? So that would be, where it gets a little bit, more complicated. Or if you're using things like bot sheets, which is another software which connects really well with ManyChat. That's mainly for, if you have a lot of, or if you have a client that has like e-commerce that has a bunch of images and galleries, and being able to like even do food ordering inside of a chatbot where you have a bunch of different menu items. The last thing you want is a huge, crazy chatbot flow, which is what we had to do beforehand. With bot sheets, it's all inside of Google Sheets, and it just goes and pulls it from there. But adding complexity like that, there's some issues sometimes where it's not even human user error. Sometimes it's a bot sheets error, and you have to figure out what's going on. So in some instances, it can get more complicated, where it can cause issues, and it's like, oh, if this was just straightforward, it wouldn't be an issue. But pretty much Zapier is pretty straightforward. Also, if you integrate, Active Campaign or your email, that's pretty straightforward too. So it's only when you have to do some like things that are kind of off or a little bit different or a little bit more advanced, that's where, it can be, an extra layer of complexity. But sometimes, it's not a big issue if you're using Zapier.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So any other questions?
We had one. It's a little off the topic of what you're looking at right now, but it's a good question, so we might as well jump into it.
Yeah.
So Kali'i Wells says, Sold Out Courses has a warning to not use this for the audience growth funnel anymore, which is true. So they're asking, can we disregard that warning? And I would say, yeah, you can. And I'll give a little bit of context as to why we put that on there, and then we can talk about that. Mackenzie, maybe run through how to do those. But basically, the reason why we added that is because when that rule changed, whatever that was a couple years ago with the 24 hours, it caused a ton of confusion. And because everything was moving so quickly, and like you had mentioned, even Facebook, I remember that time just being super chaotic, right? There was a lot of stuff going on. And when sold out courses was meant to be beginner friendly, right? So there was like command decision made by Dan to just say, listen, we're like, engagement is great with chatbots. It's amazing. It's so amazing, right? But we're just going to go back to old school email as what we recommend, because then we don't have to deal with the changing landscape and the rules and all of that, because it just was very chaotic. And if people, we knew for sure that even though it was a powerful tool, when people run into those kind of hurdles, they will lose momentum. And especially in the beginning of your journey, the last thing you want, right, is somebody to like, hey, I've run into my first like big hurdle, and my mindset, it's taking a toll, right? And then they just drop off. So in the interest of keeping, even those people who are the most beginner, not tech savvy at all, moving, we were just like, we're going to go back to email and do it that way. But on that topic, could you kind of just run through really briefly what it looks like to do a lead magnet to grow an audience, and kind of what you can do with that information after?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. So, for example, like I was saying at the beginning, like you can take, a foundational flow that if it's going to be similar for everything, like you're asking email and phone number or just email, don't recreate it. I mean, you can if you want. I guess it's good practice. But my thought is, I just like to copy and paste where possible. So, for example, it probably won't let me do this with Zapier, not connected, but let me show you that I can just save this, publish it. And then the other thing too is once it's published, like you can then easily convert it. You don't have to like rebuild it into Instagram. You can just click here and do convert channels, and then choose Instagram or WhatsApp or SMS or whatever, and just hit duplicate and convert. And then it will create it for you like that. There you go. There's Instagram. You just want to make sure, like it said, go through and make sure it's, because there are some minor differences between the different platforms. So you just want to make sure that as you go through that it's, that it looks and it works and functions properly. But a lot of times what I do with this, just because I also, with campaigns and flows, I try to have everything all, when possible, in one flow. So that way, when you're looking at stats and things, it's easy to just look at everything. So you don't have to pull up, okay, I'm going to look at the Messenger one. Okay, now I'm going to look at the Instagram one. So what I do is I just like highlight the whole thing, and then you can hit Control C or Control V. It's the same, copy paste. And then I go to the original one, which that was was this one. And then I just paste it in here. So that way I have traffic that's all going to this one specifically. And then I just started out with a condition, looking to see if they are opted in for Messenger or Instagram. And then this is true. And so when it's true, then it's like, okay, they're going to go to Messenger. If they are opted in for Instagram, then they'll go here. So that's an example where you can be like, okay, great. Now I can come and look to see how well is my Facebook traffic doing versus my Instagram traffic. And of course, you want to make sure your trigger steps are consistent based off of, if you're doing Instagram or Facebook, because obviously this one is just Facebook. So if you're doing Instagram, you'd want to have that as a trigger as well. But so with that being said, what you can do is then if you go out here, I'll just show you, you can easily duplicate it, flows. And then that way, just hit duplicate. And then you can use this one to then create for like a lead magnet. So for example, for a lead magnet, you say, okay, great to get this lead magnet, and then tap your email. And then that's all the same. And then you can say, okay, well, of course you want to adjust this because this is saying, schedule an appointment. So that way it's consistent. And instances where this also reminded me, so instances where like, if you have like an example where you need to send something that's multiple use cases, but there's something that changes, like for example, where it's the lead magnet or schedule a call or whatever, you can end up creating a bot field. So then that way, what happens with that is, then that way you can say, okay, in this instance, I'm going to say lead magnet and all of these, and you can change that. So it's all, so you only have to change it one spot in the bot field, and it'll change it throughout all the flows. So that's really helpful if you have a lot of different spaces or places where you need to change things. Like, you know, if you're changing the name of a webinar, for example, you want people to schedule for the webinar and you have a bunch of different flows, then if you have that bot field, then you can change that bot field in the settings of ManyChat just one time. You don't have to go through each of these and change and maybe miss one or whatever. So that can be time consuming. So I highly suggest implementing bot fields where possible. And then, so let's say for this, obviously, you know, maybe you're not asking for their phone number right away, right? So, or to schedule. So let's just say, okay, great. You know, they want to then, okay, below to get your lead magnet. And you can do this a couple ways. You can either link in as a website, like to a Google Doc or whatever, or it's in a Google Drive somewhere, or you can actually add the file if you want. My suggestion for statistical purposes is to have it as a website, because also Instagram, you can't add a file. You have to have it that way. So that makes it also easier that way. But then what you can do is you can tag. So you can add the tag that, let's say, clicked lead magnet, right there. So then once they click that lead magnet, you can do a couple things. You could have it where clicking that lead magnet will fire off a trigger to then follow up with them. Let's say, 10 minutes later, that will say, hey, let's say it's something that the next step would be to schedule a call. So then you can say, how did you like it? Do you have any questions? Next step, would you like to schedule a call, and then have them go through and then the rest of it. Another way to do that, because there are people who obviously will drop off, that they'll get this. They're like, okay, great, but they're driving. And so they're like, I'll click that later. So what you can do is you can just do a smart delay, let's say, of like an hour. And then you want to follow up with them. And you can change it to 10 minutes or whatever. But then what you can do is you can do this condition to see if they actually clicked the lead magnet or not. So you can see if the tag is click the lead magnet. And if they did, then that's where you can say, hope that lead magnet was helpful, blah, 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 here's the next steps. If they didn't, then that's where you can send like a gentle reminder saying, hey, don't forget to get, your lead magnet, and then follow up from there too. You could just have the button there for them to click again, and then you could do another follow-up for that next step. Maybe they don't click that one either. Then you can just instead say, hey, you're super busy, you want to schedule a call here, you can just and get them to that next step. So that's where having conditions is really helpful, because it then sends the messages that are relevant to people based off of their interactions. Because the last thing you want is to have a blanket set of messages that are going to everybody that it only really applies to a small number. Because as I'm sure you're aware, if you've emails and messages in general, you receive a bunch of messages that aren't relevant to you, that you don't find a lot of value in, then you start ignoring them, right? So you could get a bunch of messages over and over again, but you see it's from the same one. You just click it to have it count as being read, but you're actually not taking action on there. So that's where having the ability to make it so it's relevant based off of actions is super important. Any other lead generation questions?
Let's see. We don't have any in the Q&A, but I'm going to look through the chat. So somebody in the group asked about organic versus ads, and it seems like it doesn't matter, and you can have people come in multiple ways. Do you find that one way of having somebody, let's just take organic, do you find that the comment is better? Do you find that what is the easiest to set up and kind of the best engagement wise? or does it depend?
So it depends on the platform. So one platform that if you have a following on, that works really, really well is Instagram, because you can actually have your Instagram setup of being a story reply. You could just do a story and say, hey, reply to the story with the fire emoji, or just reply to the story and I'll send you this, right?
Jeez.
So that's
an emoji even? Oh my God.
Yeah, you can do anything.
Very cool.
And it's funny. I'm actually setting up a chatbot for Lisa Renna, and we're going to do that exact same thing. We're not even have to run ads. Like, she's got enough of a following that she can just post a story thing and it's going to go in the chatbot and it's going to blow up. We don't even have to run ads. But so that's where, if you have a following, that makes a huge difference. And where organic is really, really helpful. And then the other part of it is just comments in general. So for Instagram comments, obviously, or with Instagram, you can't share posts like you can on Facebook. So Instagram comments are still really, really helpful. I mean, I do that for a lot of my clients, where we set up a comment growth tool on a specific post that any comment will then, you know, if obviously that post is talking about, like, let's say the lead magnet, then we can set it up where any comment will send them a message. The other option is to have it set up where it's a specific keyword, and if they comment on any post with that keyword, then it'll fire that off. So then that's nice, where you don't have to set it up for each post. You can just say, okay, hashtag lead magnet, and then you just put that as the opt-in keyword, and you just say, you know, only ones that say hashtag lead magnet, then that will send it off. So that way, and I would highly suggest, if you do this where it's all posts or all publications, that this is a very specific one, because the last thing you want is someone, you know, if you just say lead magnet, last thing you want is for someone to say, you know, they comment saying, hey, I was looking for this lead magnet and I didn't get it, or this, I hated this lead magnet, or something like that, right? It would still fire off. So you want to make sure that it's specific if you're going to do all publications. But yeah, so using the comment growth tool is super beneficial. The difference with Facebook with the comment growth tool is, because people can share that, the issue is with Facebook, the comment growth tool is connected to your page, your Facebook business page's post, right? So like, you can say a specific post and then you can choose the post, right? That's upcoming or that you've recently posted. So what happens is, when someone shares, like, let's say it gets a ton of engagement and people are like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, I'm going to share this. So someone shares it to their Facebook. Well, that creates technically a new post on their wall, right? So then if someone comments, they see your post and it says comment below for this or whatever, and they reply to their friend's post, it won't send to them because it's technically on their friend's post. So they'd have to reply on the actual post. So that's where it can get kind of confusing, or, you know, in that instance. But hey, if it's organic, it works great. The other thing you can do is, in the post copy itself, you can put a ref URL link so they can just click it. Actually, I do that a lot, where, you know, you ask people to click the link and they comment, oh, I'm interested in this. It's like, that wasn't call to action. It said, click this link. Like, can you not read? But if you have that catch fence of the comment growth tool, then it'll still send it to them. So
yeah,
maybe you don't want to do that because they don't follow directions. Maybe that's the last people that you want to be involved in. But, you know.
Oh man, yeah.
So
so true.
Yeah, so it's different instances. And the other thing is, you, like, so many times I set up chatbots for clients. I'm like, okay, great. Now let's let this run for a week and make adjustments, because we could try to plan for everything possible and we will not cover everything. There's going to be something that some people are going to do that we were not expecting. So that's where it's good to, you know, make the chatbot a little bit smarter in terms of functionality with this. And that's the other thing too. I mean, you could technically connect this to Dialogflow and have it totally AI and it starts to learn on its own. That is very, very high advanced stuff. But if anybody's like into that, that's really cool too. And Chat GPT, I mean, you can do tons of like AI stuff, but keep it simple. Keep it simple, especially if you're a beginner. But there is a lot of stuff that you can do with that.
Very cool. Because I know we do have a good amount of people who are organic only. And so I knew that being asked was like, and I know Dan last month on his call for Legacy University talked about a strategy where he was doing the comment thing on Instagram, and it works really well. Like I was incredibly like, wow. I had no idea you could do And yeah, I just had no idea. I have not paid attention. I've been in my lane. So, but it was very, very cool. And that's, I think, where his most engaging audience is anyway. So it's great. It's like a really good
Well,
tool.
and the other piece though is I highly suggest if you get people in, always think 2 steps ahead. So if there's an instance where you might want to re-engage with people, ask them to opt into, you can do a follow-up, right? Like let's say even that they click to schedule appointment or they get the lead magnet and you do a follow-up. I would highly suggest a follow-up of asking them to opt in for notifications for tips. Even like one of my clients who's an influencer in the fashion space, they're coming in to get lead magnets and stuff. And I say, you know, they provide their email and things. And I say, hey, do you want to get my weekly tips? Click the button below and I'll send you a tip every week. And the benefit of that is these tips, yeah, I have them set up, you know, like 30 of them. So it lasts for a long time, but I can edit them to add like, okay, if somebody receives this tip and let's say she's doing a webinar and says, oh, by the way, also, you know, I'm doing a webinar, you know, would you like to register? So that way it's providing, so especially if you're paying for ads and getting people in there, you definitely want people to opt in for future notifications. So it's a good use of your ad dollars to be able to reach them more than once instead of just having to rely on email or SMS. And Facebook has a sponsored message feature. It sucks where you can pay Facebook per message pretty much to send,
yes.
but they do it like ads. They don't send it to everybody. And it sends out like over a 48 to 72 hour period. I have tried so hard to get that thing to
40 to 72 hours. Oh yeah. Man.
It's so you can't do it for like saying, hey, the webinar is starting or hey, you know, any time-based stuff, it doesn't work. So trying to get them to opt in to a recurring notification is the best bet to be able to contact them outside of that 24 hours. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As far as engagement and keeping them, kind of keeping yourself top of mind, do you find that people get, if you're using both, right? Let's say chatbot and email, do you find that people get frustrated with that? Is there like a level where people get annoyed and will opt out of one? Or do you
some
find
people
that,
do, yeah.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, it also depends on your audience. I mean, I even get people that come into a chatbot, they click on an ad and they're like, why are you messaging me? Get off my phone. I bet you can tell what age group they're in, but yeah, they
Totally,
are
totally.
not.
Are you trying to vary the content then so
Yeah.
that you're, because I would assume what I'm kind of getting at, common sense would say, but I'll just say it out loud. You probably wouldn't want to have those tips, let's say, for the client you were talking about in email, maybe also in chatbot, because if they're getting both, it'd be so annoying.
I would definitely, I definitely, with those tips, those were only being sent through the chatbot. So
Perfect.
Definitely having something where somebody can only get it through Messenger or Instagram or whatever adds that scarcity. And they're like, ooh, yeah, I'm really interested in this. And then of course there's some engagement too, right? Where people think she's really the one sending it. And then they tell a story about them with their issues with their family and with their boyfriend. It's like, it's crazy how much people divulge in chat with somebody that they think is like their person, right? But that way it does provide that engagement. And they're like, oh, this is really helpful. And then also builds that brand awareness too. So, you know, especially with ads, you know, for a lead magnet that they don't necessarily know who you are, who the person is. So they opt in and they get the lead magnet or whatever, but then having these tips, it's providing that value over a consistent basis. And it starts to build that brand trust in their mind of like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. They provide me a lot of value. So then when you ask them, have the ask to have them be a part of a webinar or ask them to buy a masterclass or something, then they're a little bit more receptive instead of, you know, they opted into this lead magnet like months ago and you try to send them a sponsored messenger like, who are you, sort of thing. So it really helps. Multiple reasons for that.
Yeah, for sure. I know we used chatbots for the book, and I was supervising the person who was moderating those. And so you're so spot on. People, for better or for worse, people really like to have a conversation there, which is great. That's like the whole point. And Facebook loves it too, because you're keeping people on the platform, right? So back to them working hand in hand, it makes perfect sense that they would, right? Because it's more time.
Exactly.
but yeah, they will derail derail a
Yes.
topic. And sometimes you learn new things about your audience there. You're able to
Oh
help
yeah.
somebody or block somebody, like frankly, that you don't even
Yeah,
want
and
to
I've
engage
used
with.
I've used it for customer research too, right? Like
Yeah.
after someone opts in for something, for a while there, we were talking about like with ads, and the ads weren't converting really well. I'm like, well, let's, because she has a really huge following on YouTube, and so she'd do a YouTube video that would talk about her quiz inside of the chatbot. So people would go through the quiz, and I was like, okay, well, at the end of the quiz, instead of sending them to opt in for the tips right away, I would ask them some questions like, asking them their age range and asking them, some other things that would help give us insight for the ads to say, okay, maybe the audience isn't right. So let's see who these people are that are her following, and see, also maybe what their biggest problems are, right? So that can also help give you insights of like, oh, okay, so I was thinking if I was coming up with this content that this would be really beneficial to people, but my following is saying, it's something else, right? So that's
Right.
really good to be able to use that inside of the chatbot. So
Yeah, they're probably more likely to engage with those questions than doing it
a
via
form.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we used to, for sure.
Yeah. So customer research is super important.
Yeah, for sure.
I see a question about can you use a chatbot with lead ads? So you can have a link to the chatbot. I would not use lead ads in terms of like where it provides their name, email, and phone or whatever, where they click submit. Just have it go into the chatbot instead. With that one orthodontist client of mine that I said has a 30% rate of actual people submitting with the reminder messages. He was actually doing lead ads before, so we compared, and I don't remember what those numbers were, but the chatbot was getting way better results than lead ads, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of quality, just for whatever reason. I mean, but this also was a couple of years ago when you ran that, so
right.
Split test. Definitely, that's what we did. We did a test. We said, okay, out of this many people who opted into the lead ads, how many of them scheduled and or showed up versus this many people who've gone to the chatbot and scheduled, how many of those showed up? So definitely look at those numbers and see what has the better results for sure.
This is making me think back to the FAFE 30-day agency days of using lead ads with local clients, and then the dreaded wrong phone number, wrong email, I didn't enter. And it's funny because talking about, because that's what they use, right, guys? For anybody who hasn't run lead ads, they use whatever Facebook knows about you is what is used. And Facebook doesn't have my main email. I don't know if I think they have my phone number, but they don't have my email that I use, that my Facebook is registered to. I don't use, and I haven't for like a decade. So yeah, it gets, it's funny. Just making my eye twitch a little bit, bringing me back. Lead ads are really great for local business. At least they were back then. But for any of you guys, and I would assume most people here are doing some sort of coaching course, maybe like a high ticket service, probably running some piece of core content like a webinar. You probably don't want to use lead ads.
No, and I would definitely use the chatbot because that also gives you a direct connection with people too, where even, like I said, you have 24 hours for automation. Obviously, outside of the chatbot, like if you just go to your Facebook page inbox, you can message people as much as you want. Just awareness though about that is if you're messaging somebody from your inbox and they respond with a keyword or something in your chatbot, the automation will go off. So just an FYI about that. If you do converse with people inside of ManyChat, you do have a 7-day window after their last engagement that you can actually message them through the live chat. And messaging them through the live chat will actually stop the automation while you're messaging. So that's one benefit, to not have the automation interrupt your conversation. So
yeah, that would be good. Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine. And we've used the inbox a lot for support related stuff, and just and then I think the closed deal sales team uses it as well, heavily.
And I've even used it to get people re-engaged to enter the chatbot. For example, an e-commerce client of mine started using a chatbot, and they had a long time that they've been had messaging people in the past. Actually, they were using ManyChat before, but they stopped using it, and then they wanted to start using it again. So there was a lot of people who had messaged about their products in the past. So what we did is actually we set up a message that, because you can message people up to about a year since they last engaged through the inbox. So then I just created a message that says, hey, we're doing this new exciting thing. If you're interested in a coupon, reply with this word below. And so I then had the keyword set up in the chatbot. So then I would just copy and paste that into the inbox. And then when they'd reply with that keyword, then they would initiate them into the chatbot and then get them through that flow. So that's also a good use case when you forget to turn on a comment growth tool, even though it's connected, you forgot to turn it on and you have hundreds of comments. This happened to Dan, actually. He talked to me about. He didn't have it turned on or didn't have the comment reply on. So I told him, I said, all you need to do is just go to everybody and hit reply and then reply with a message that says, hey, to get this, reply with this word, and it would just, initiate it. But yeah, so it's nice. It's a great reminder that automation is very helpful when it's working properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, it definitely is. Oh my gosh. That wasn't my job that day. So that's.
Yeah, when I told him about that, he's like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to just delete this post and redo it.
Yeah, like, he doesn't. Yeah, exactly. I have been the one that's sort of reconnected though. I've been the reconnector quite a few times. Yeah, that's for sure. Because that just happens, guys. Like it's just it is what it is. And then you'll get some support email that's like, it didn't work or whatever. And you're like, oh well, Facebook's at it again.
Yep,
go refresh that. But that's true with like we used to use Agora Pulse for moderation and support and stuff, and man, that would happen there too. Anytime they change the API, they just that's the way they roll.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's a good reminder that when the automation is working, how much time it's actually saving. So it's once and it's working well, then it's like sweet, set it and forget it for the most part until you're actually needed to engage. So it's super helpful that way.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're out of questions. I think that so maybe guys drop what you'd like to have covered next time we chat.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing this once a month, so we can talk about and go over anything specifically. I'm sure this is making a lot of your wheels spin, like, oh, I can do this or whatever. So, if there's anything that is like, oh, I think next time I want, let's talk about this or this, is this possible? Like I said, we can go over surveys or quizzes or customer research stuff. I mean, it's just, like I said, sky's the limit for the most part, but definitely, think about it or let me know and tag me in the group. And, if there's anything, between now and next month, if you're like, hey, can you help me, build this or whatever, or can you create this template for me, feel free to reach out and, we can discuss more about that, because there's been a number of times where I've had a client where they're like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like, okay. And then I tell them, how best to do it. And they're like, you know what? Just, never mind. Just have you do it. So I was like,
yeah, okay. There's that always reminds me of Andy Stickle. I remember when he was redoing some webinar for his service, and he was following the webinar training that we have, and he wasn't really talking about the how, right? It was just kind of the why and all the usual inspirational stuff, and then book a call at the end, and it was going okay. But then he was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell them exactly how to get more law clients. I'm going to tell them in painstakingly detail how to do the SEO, and he just laid it out. And at the end, they were just like, please, we'll pay you $50K. Yeah. Please. Like, I just don't, I can't, I don't want. And so it's funny because I think back to that a lot of times when people were talking about, hey, how do I make this content, especially around a service? Because there's just like the information. For most people, you can give all the information away and they're just not going to implement. They're busy. It's whatever, right? They don't want to for whatever reason. And so, it's, you can never give away too much, truly.
Oh, exactly. And people will be like, okay, I just needed to know enough that I know this will work. And I get an idea of how it will work, but I have a client in Israel who she has like a yoga studio and does a bunch of other stuff. And so for the last literally 6 months, I've been working with her to create a chatbot that's both Messenger and WhatsApp that will allow people to find, it's pretty much like an Airbnb, find rental spaces for activities, but then also finding activities, and then also doing it in English and in Hebrew. So of course, I'm not doing the Hebrew part, but I have to duplicate it, and then she
oh my God.
does the translation. But I mean, I did not realize how complex this was going to be. I really wish I would have probably doubled my rate with her just because of how much time it's taken and extra. But it's really cool to see it actually function, and also being able to, I mean, she's obviously she's paying me to build it, and then she's going to take it over, or at least run it once it's good to go.
We'll see.
Assuming I'm probably never going to not hear from her again, right? She's going to always be like, hey, this isn't working right. Or I need to do this, or how do I do this? So, but trying to create a system for her. So all she has to do is send people into it, and then it'll output, if they follow the flow, right? If they don't, human error and say something else, that they'll be able to, register for activities or initiate a rental agreement with the owner, right? So it's really cool to be able to build something like that, but also it's great that she knows. I mean, she's mentioned a few times, she's like, wow, this thing is like super complex. I'm like, yeah, don't mess with that part, please.
Yeah, don't touch.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so I mean, that's another example where you can have it super, simple, or have it much more complex. But again, it's all depending on what the goal is, and
work backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
Yeah. So. Yeshim says, I think it's because Angie targets lawyers and they don't want to deal with marketing. Honestly, it's true. That's part of it, but nobody wants to. Most people don't want to do the complex thing, even though it's going to solve their problem, right?
Yeah.
It just, because they're busy. And I think most people, even if you get down to, I don't know, anything at all. What was I just talking to my husband about? Something so benign. It's such a first world thing. But we were talking about Christmas lights. And I was like, we should decorate outside like next year, like really do, like be like the house on the block just for fun while the kids are like care about that thing. And and I was like, who could we hire? Who could we hire?
Yeah.
There's just no way. Like, so yeah. People will hire things out, especially when they feel like it's complex. But even with us, a couple months ago, when DMC was shut down, Dan started giving out a lot more information on YouTube. He gives a ton out in the book. There's just so much information everywhere. Every time he goes on a podcast, he's just like saying all the things. Basically, he doesn't really hold back. But people still need help implementing. And sometimes that help comes in the form of just having like a structured flow of things to follow. And sometimes they want coaching, and sometimes they end up hiring somebody to build, stuff out for them completely. Like they just want hands off. It just depends.
Yeah. And that's the joys of, having different clients with different things, and, I've never been niched really, except for mainly chatbots. So it's like all over the place. So like, yes, and your question about what kind of offer did I structure to charge her monthly? I'm not charging her monthly. It was a fee based off of her project fee. So, but I just split it up monthly for her because it was 5 figures. So.
Do you do retainers?
Oh yeah, that's actually majority of my clients are build and retain and build Smart. New stuff all the time, including ads too. So with my course, teaching people how to build chatbot agency, I'm always telling people you need to also be able to learn ads. You can't just know chatbots, because how are you going to get traffic in there? And if a client doesn't have a traffic source, then the chatbot won't work. So you don't want to rely on them trying to provide the traffic source. I've had that example too, where the client was like, oh, I'll run the ads. I don't want to pay you to run the ads. You just do the chatbot. I'm like, okay. So I do the chatbot, and he sucks at the ads, doesn't send any traffic in there. And then he's like, oh, this isn't working. I can't pay you anymore. I'm like, because you suck at ads. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, so remember when Dan, when Dan did lead out, and it was literally because of that exact, it was like, oh, well, wait a minute, we can create this great ad for this local business, right? And we're going to send all this traffic, and your phone is going to ring at your front desk of like, I don't know, chiropractor. But if they're not answering the phone, and it sounds so silly, but it's very true and very real. And then they're like, your ads don't work. Facebook ads don't work for my business. It's like, I'm sorry. And then Dan, of course, being Dan, It's like, oh, well, now I'm going to use the software and I'm going to have a meeting with you. I'm going to show you exactly how long it's taking your front, office people to pick up that phone.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow. Well, and really what that is that they have to get the result. Who cares? Like most business owners, right, at every level, they don't care about how cool a chatbot is. They want the end result. Sure, if it's cool, that's great. If the ad goes viral, that's amazing. But the end result is like what we're all here for.
So. Exactly. Yeah. And again, if they are newer to marketing or they don't understand, that's where I'm always like, one of the big questions I ask on a discovery call is like, okay, what's your current traffic source? If they don't have a huge following with organic and they need ads, then I'm like, okay, have you been running ads? So definitely finding out that information ahead of time. But yeah, because the chatbot's only as good as the traffic going through it. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all right. I think that's it. Cool. And guys, if you guys are not in the group and you have ideas for upcoming sessions, you can always send them to support as well, because I'm there. So I will track them, whatever is easiest.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'll keep a list myself because I'm sure I'll come up with stuff.
Right. Yeah, that works. Awesome. All right. Well then, yeah, well, hopefully, you guys can also watch the recording. Of course, I went through a lot of this, but yeah, if I don't hear from you guys before, we'll talk to you in about a month.
All righty. Thanks, Mackenzie. Bye, guys.
Cool. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.